This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
You can't rely on blind faith to get the pregnancy support you deserve. Ritual's Essential Prenatal Multivitamin is the only leading prenatal backed by its own human clinical trial. Essential Prenatal is proven to deliver key nutrients, including folate, biotin, and vitamin D during pregnancy. Get 25% off when you visit ritual.com/clinical. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Man.
As I mentioned, Louie will be in studio next segment. I'm guessing he's torturing Chad Abbott right now in Abbott's office. Or maybe Abbott's a lot of time he's out of here by now.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Usually, it looks like, I bet Louie's calling the hotline right now.
Right now to get in.
Here, probably.
Okay. Well, he's got a badge, doesn't he?
No.
I thought he had one.
No, he doesn't live here anymore.
Well, you're right. Well, maybe we took it away from him when he left.
I think we probably did.
Kessler will join in studio as well in the 5 o'clock hour of the broadcast. You saw the Caitlin Clark history made last night in defeat. The Fever losing to Atlanta ended up being, I think, a 1-point loss in Indianapolis. But she, with last night, with her scoring / assist performance last night, she now has 10 games of 20 or more points and 10 or more assists in her career. And she's already got the... that was in a 91-90 loss. She had 25 points and 11 assists. She now already has more points with that combination. I should say in 42 games, she has... I guess she didn't technically break it. She's tied Courtney Vandersloot, the woman whose record she equaled, and it took Vandersloot 394 games to reach that threshold.
It is crazy how quickly
it's unbelievable
going through some of these things.
It's unbelievable.
Not good enough to get her the last second shot, though, last night.
Is that right?
New coach drew it up for somebody else.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Is that true?
Yeah, apparently. I didn't see it, but that was some of the commentary.
Although I'm seeing that she has the most games with 25 and 10, so I'm already confused. But this is she's only played 42 games, and this was her sixth where she put up at least 25 and 10. And, she, in doing so, passed New York Liberty star Sabrina Ionescu, who has 5 games with 25 and 10, and she is at the start of her 6th WNBA season. So she's played 144 games. It's fairly astonishing. We know, again, they had the second of the 2 games on ABC Saturday. Bafo ratings again. I think the ratings for the Clark game doubled the ratings for the game featuring the defending champion Liberty as well, because it was a doubleheader.
Peaked at 3.1 million.
That's pretty good.
An average of 2.7 million on ABC. The most watched WNBA regular season contest in 25 years. And they stopped the game at halftime to pay homage to that game 25 years ago because it technically came before Caitlin Clark, and we must recognize everything that did come before. So they brought back people from 25 years ago to say this is the last time so many people watched one of these games, and we just want to make sure that we're getting that straight for the record.
Well, that's important. Those sorts of clarifications
apparently it is.
Are apparently very important.
I didn't think it was, but it apparently is.
Yeah. And do we have a new... it's never going to stop, is it? Is there a new Angel Reese Clark controversy that I've missed?
Well, I think it's just from the foul over the weekend, isn't it? There's a new one on top of that one?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
According to... at least this is New York Post, so keep that in mind. They're tabloidy. Angel Reese isn't letting go of the ongoing Caitlin Clark drama she's embroiled in. On Tuesday, the Sky Star reposted a TikTok video containing a screenshot of an ex-post mocking Clark as a white girl running away from the fade, a reference to their brouhaha during Chicago's season-opening loss to Clark's Fever on Saturday. Well, I'll say again, there's a part of me that's already weary with how this story has been extended. But if you want to play the long game, I guess you'd say it's part of what's intriguing people. It's part of what's bringing the eyeballs that ordinarily wouldn't necessarily be focused on WNBA intrigue, right? So do you accept the notion that the league has to, I don't know, embrace is the right word, but they can't run from this exactly because the notoriety, the alleged rivalry between the two of them is part of what's fueling the extended interest, the escalated interest. Just saying.
Yes and no, because I think I'd be curious what the rest of the numbers are going to be the rest of the season with Caitlin Clark games. I still don't think it's a Clark and Reese bit.
No, it's not.
And as much as we try to make it that, and as much as I think Reese wants it to be that, it just isn't that right now. And when it is, it's for the negative stuff. When it first started a couple of years ago when they were in college, a lot of it was because of what was actually happening on the court. That they played in the Final Four, that Reese played great, that they won the national championship. And I even remember when the big thing that started it was when she did the I can't see you thing in Caitlin Clark's face. And I remember thinking, that's phenomenal. That's exactly what she should do. That's what Clark does.
Yes, right.
Clark is not taking offense to it. Like, it all started, I thought, at a good spot, and it's just gotten completely crazy. But I don't think the basketball part of it has matched up to the stupid off-court drama that continues to pop up. And that's where I think it does get wearying and where I get kind of turned off by the whole thing.
Well, I think for me, the most wearying aspect of it is how quickly it becomes 85 to 90% sociological. That any basketball, because this is where Reese seems to be wanting to have it both ways. Because after the game, look, the fact that she got up annoyed, I have no problem with that. Most players would.
Happens
would they
all
not?
the time.
Yeah.
Yes, happens all the time.
I wasn't all that bothered by that. After the game, she basically then dismissed it. They both did as a basketball play. I have not seen the video. I asked you this yesterday if you thought it was a legitimate flagrant one. I know a lot of people who thought that it was the right call. It was a flagrant one. I don't know.
I can go either way, but I'm fine with whatever they decided. Okay, it wasn't egregious. But there was a little extra there.
But my point is, if then if you're Reese, you are trying to have it both ways. Instead of letting it go, you've doubled down with whatever this stupid TikTok thing was, right? Then it makes it sound like you are, after the fact, now saying it was more than a basketball play, and you're trying to extend it even more, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So Clark finishes with 27, 11, and 5, but they did lose by 1, and she did not get the last shot. You said
that's what I read. People were not happy about it.
Wow.
Yeah, they lost to the Atlanta Dream.
That's unfortunate.
Natasha Howard got the shot, had her first attempt blocked.
Ooh. Well, she's a good scorer, though, is she not?
Is she Caitlin Clark, Dan?
Well, no, but you can't take every shot. Michael did take almost every shot.
In year 2, he was taking every shot.
Yeah, well, to the detriment of the team,
I know.
at that point, truth be told. But, again, it's if you think it's a basketball play, then why can you not resist the temptation to click on it, right, in Reese's case? And to add another chapter to, sounds like there's a little more bite back there again. It sounds like she's trying to make something more of it than is actually there. In any case, it will be, we know, I'm pretty sure that Chicago has not been forced is the wrong word, had the opportunity to move a lot of its, or I guess you should say opposing teams, have not been had the opportunity to move games against Angel Reese and Chicago to bigger arenas. That is exclusively right now a Caitlin Clark thing.
It's so much so that they've made shirts that say every game is a home game. The Fever.
Is that right?
Which is just a brilliant shirt.
By the way, though, I think the Chicago home game against Caitlin Clark has been literally moved to United Center.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah, it should be.
So is that for Angel Reese? Okay. I mean, you can think so, but it's really not.
Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The keyword for the 4 o'clock hour is Bills. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword Bills.
You think Cheryl Reeve would ever admit that she made a mistake not drafting her?
Angel Reese?
Angel Reese, not Clark. She didn't have a chance to draft Clark.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You don't think there's any regret there? She can rebound.
Yeah.
Still not a great scorer, but she can play a little bit.
She's a good player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think?
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is Nanne?
It's hard for any of us to believe this, but he's actually in studio. Yeah, he's here. I'm looking at him right now. And if you have questions for him, hit the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. Both Guardsy and I feel really badly about the weather. We really do. We feel bad that you've had to endure this sort of miserable rain and chilly temperatures that we're now dealing with here in the Twin Cities.
Well, I've only had a half a day of it, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's the annoying part.
I was in Virginia Beach yesterday, and it was gorgeous right along the ocean there. It was just...
Probably muggy.
There.
Probably muggy.
No, it wasn't even muggy.
It wasn't?
It was actually very breezy. The only thing I don't know is how people live there, because that's the biggest base, I guess, in the country.
Is that right?
And the F-18's probably going off the ship,
time?
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, steady. It's just like...
Never stops.
Continually. You know, all day long you got planes, and, you know, they make a lot of noise, those planes.
So, business or pleasure, Virginia Beach?
Business.
Business, of course, yeah. Okay.
I actually came home Monday morning from Sault Ste. Marie, which was a pleasure for my sister's 50th anniversary.
Oh,
and
nice.
the next day, her granddaughter's baptism and her grandson. And so it was a complete eat-a-thon for 3 days. You've never seen so much food in your life. I mean, we eat a lot. I mean, when you go up
that's
there...
That's part of the culture.
But never saw anything like this.
So,
never seen anything like this.
Are we talking... variety? We're talking all Italian stuff? What are we talking about?
Mostly all
Mostly
Italian. But I mean, you'd sit down under white gnocchis, red gnocchis, porchetta, ravioli, veal.
How do you not gain 25 pounds?
That's what I said. I said, that's it. I'm not eating again for another 4 months. And like desserts, we had literally about 14 different desserts, and they're all good. My wife says, you got to quit eating those. Get away. They took pictures of me because I was planted right where all the food was. And like the antipasta, I must have ate 4 pounds of prosciutto before I got into the salami, and then all different cheeses.
That's too good.
And it was, and we went she's got
feast.
2 daughters. We started at my brother's house, and one place would have the appetizers, next place would have the dinner, next place would have the desserts.
It's unbelievable.
And literally, we went from 3 in the afternoon. I went home at 11 o'clock at night, but I know my son and my son-in-law didn't get home till 3 in the morning. They were still going. Still eating and drinking, yeah. And that's just one day. We did it for 3 days.
See, I can't eat late anymore.
I can't.
Can you still eat late?
I can eat at any time, but I try not to eat too late. Yeah.
Because in Europe, like in Spain, Italy, they it's customary to eat dinner much later than what most people do here, correct?
But they go to bed first. And then they go to eat. We don't do that.
That's how I get the second wind.
Yeah, but actually I have started the last couple of years trying to eat by 6:30, 6:30. Occasionally you get something come up, so you go for dinner at 8.
Sure.
But most of the times it's about 6:30.
About 6:30, yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you had a good time there. Speaking of the Sioux, how's Phil Esposito doing these days? Have you talked to him much lately?
Yeah, he's doing fine. He's actually he lives all year in
Florida,
Tampa.
Right? Yeah,
and he's got a place in what's that? Starts with a B. The one further down the peninsula there.
I'm not a great Florida mind,
but he stays there all the time, and he's doing well. He's still broadcasting. Craig Hartsburg's in town today. I'm going to have lunch dinner with him tomorrow. He's got a grandson playing for Little Caesars in Detroit, which is coached by this Ryan Kessler. They're all coming in tomorrow for this tournament.
Right.
And so he called me yesterday and wanted to get together. So we're going to get together tomorrow. And he wanted some reservations in Tavern 23. I said, I'm going with you. So I'm going to see him tomorrow. He's one. I have to tell you, he is, in my mind, Hartsburg, top 3 players ever played for the North Stars. He was an incredible talent that his career got cut short, probably at, I want to say 27, 28 because of a hip injury. And it was amazing what he could do with the puck. It was just amazing.
If I feel like most of the hockey community, like, retired players, executives, coaches, etc., they gravitate towards Florida more than Arizona. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
Seems like you guys got a little colony down there, a hockey colony.
Well, you know what it is? A lot of them are from Ontario, Eastern Ontario, and the Maritimes, Quebec.
Right.
So they live in that side, so they go straight down.
That's true.
Many of the people that out west, they like even the Winnipeg guys can go to Florida, but when you start getting Calgary, Edmonton, they usually go to Arizona or Palm Springs. Same thing with Vancouver.
Do you? I was talking about this on Sunday. We talked briefly about the Dallas Stars making, I think it's their 3rd straight conference finals. Yeah. So, as a guy who used to play, obviously for the Stars, North Stars, and general manage as well, it's been a long time, right, since they've been gone. Is there still like something in your gut when you see that team that started here succeeding and advancing that far? Or are you way past any of that nonsense?
Well, oddly enough, I really didn't hate Dallas. It was our fault that they weren't here. And I didn't hate him because, to me, they're still part of the North Star. There was a North Star connection. So I like to see them succeed. If the Minnesota Wild aren't succeeding, I don't mind Dallas doing well because there is a bit of a connection there. And you still see the colors and you visualize the team being here. So, and by the way, that's going to be I think it's going to be a marvelous series. If it's not, I just don't understand it because McDavid's on a mission, and you got Draisaitl with him, so they're flying. But the Dallas is, I think, maybe a little better balance, and I certainly like their defense and goaltending better. And the thing about Dallas is they made some real good moves at the deadline. One of which was taking one of the old Wild players who played so well here, Granlund.
Yeah,
and he's had a tremendous playoff thus far. He's filled in that one position real well, and he's been very effective on the power play too. And they got Ottinger, from Minnesota and the Nets. So there's a
lot of connections.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I'd love to see him play. I really think that it is going to be Florida for sure, and probably Dallas. But I would not be surprised if Edmonton won the Cup the way their Stars are going.
How did they take losing Game 7 the way they did in Toronto?
Oh, boy. There's a lot of gnashing going on behind the scenes. And it's going to be very interesting what happens. And I say what happens because you've got a player like Marner now who's a free agent. And, he wants $12 million, and he'll find a way to get it to him if he'll stay, I think. But then many people are saying, why do you want him? Because he hasn't been as successful in the playoffs. Well, Berube came out today and says, I want him back. I want him back, and he's a coach. And you look and think that 1967 is the last time this team's won the Cup.
Think about it.
And that's a long time. And especially when Toronto is the most followed team in Canada. 65% of the viewership in TV across Canada is usually following the Maple Leafs. And so people take it hard. I've never in my life seen what happened during that series before. When Toronto at home, and has had an outstanding season, in games 5 and 7, both games, when they started getting blown out, people were throwing jerseys on the ice. Not hats, jerseys.
Jerseys.
I mean, that's like $350.
Like stripping off the jerseys they had on and said, I'm done with
that's
you.
It.
Throwing them on
right
the ice. That's scary.
And I've never, ever seen that in the league in 50, 60 years I've been
That's remarkable.
around. Yeah.
I missed that. Wow, that's not
both
good.
Games, not
both
one
games.
game, both games. In the third period, the jerseys came off and they started throwing jerseys on the ice.
Who? This may be an impossible question to answer, but between the Canadian fan base and the Toronto fan base is bigger, you said, but in terms of vociferousness, or no, not vociferous is not the right word, passionate. In terms of passion, are they similar, or does one have the edge?
Well, I have to say that the pure passion rests with the French, with Quebec. I would never, ever think I'd see a day the way the fans turned on the Maple Leafs, that the fans in Montreal would turn on their team. They'd be upset.
Right.
They just can't. I don't think they can bring them down to that level where they say, I'm done with you, stuff like that. They just don't. The atmosphere in a Leaf game and in a Canadian game during regular season is completely different. No matter who you're playing, what the time of the year is, if you're in Montreal watching a game, there's pure passion. There's an intensity like you can't believe. Many times when you're in Toronto, and especially back for years before this, when it was really the dress-up crowd with the shirts and ties and suits and minks, etc., and it's almost been like in the mausoleum. It was dead unless something happened in the game.
Okay.
Of all the rinks that I had the occasion to play in, with the amount of fans they had, no one was as placid as the Maple Leafs until something got going. There was just no energy. And of course, in those days, no noise on the scoreboard or anything.
Yeah, none of that
and even
stuff.
if you did, you wouldn't think that they'd follow it. They just were they were almost like what you would call a business-like crowd. We're here for business. Oh, yeah, that's nice. What are the numbers at the bottom of the line there? It was just like a different atmosphere. I'd never experienced anything like that.
Well, it's interesting what you bring up regarding how people dressed, and it's true of every sport. You go back and watch stuff, still shots or grainy black and white film from whenever, 40s, 50s, 60s. It is stunning how people dressed up to go to a baseball game, to go to a football game, to go to a hockey game, in a way that it's completely foreign. I mean, kids today would have no understanding of how different it was then.
No,
were we better off then? Why did we dress that way then? Do we know?
I think there was a different feeling in society about behavior and what you could do, what's appropriate, and it was something that went throughout the country, both this country and Canada. That's just the way you were going to something which was really high level, and so you dressed the part.
I wonder if were there fewer drunken idiots then, because when you dress better, you're not as likely to booze it up the same way?
I think
more dignity?
I think I could see a change after I was there about 15 years. The crowds at the North Star games, at the Viking games, there was more. It was very much more prevalent of drinking at the game and stuff like that, and I think that added to it, and you start having a lot of drinks at a game, somebody's going to start acting up, and we never ever would have thought the first 15 years the North Stars were in existence that you'd ever have to reprimand anybody for drinking too much or something, and talk about behavior, and then you could see it creeping in. Now it's in all sports, and we've seen instances of behavior we would never have thought about years past. So
who do you have in the finals?
I have Florida and Dallas.
You do have Florida and Dallas, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm sticking with for the record. Start. I keep feeling that I might have been wrong and this is going to change, and then I said, no, I can't give up on them. Florida is checking so well. I don't know if I've seen a team through the last series against the Leafs and starting against Carolina last night. I got in at home in time for the third period and watched that Paul Maurice has done a job, the way they check, the way they close you down, the way you shut down, especially in the defensive zone. I can't remember a team checking that well throughout the whole game and throughout the whole series, and that's why Paul Maurice is doing it. I really believe last year and this year, they won the Cup last year, of course, but just the job that he's done, because they had some turnover in players there too, and to get him to fit in, buy in, and do the same thing. I don't know when I've seen a team perform their checking duties better than what Florida's doing right now. That's why they get an edge, and Bobrovsky's come up and improved this play. But I really don't like Florida's defense as much as not even close to Dallas's, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think it was any better than Toronto's.
Yeah.
And I might like it a little better. I'd like it a little better than Edmonton's, but they are just doing a masterful job the way they're playing.
Texter writes, this is from 612, is it bad for the NHL to have 3 warm weather and a Canadian team left in the playoffs? Does that matter anymore?
No, in fact, it's good for the NHL because the more American teams in it, it's a proven fact, the better the viewership. And that's why had Edmonton and Toronto say ended up in the finals, I think the viewership would have been down 20, 30%, that much. But I do believe that because of the star power of McDavid, that if they get in the finals against, say, Florida, that I don't think you're going to see a drop-off just because they're a Canadian team, because they got the best team and best player in the world playing there. And if you remember the goalie assisted on against Vegas, the way he came down so fast, turned the defenseman inside out, you marvel at those plays. And he does everything at high speed. It's not just that he's got skill and ability. It's skill and ability at top speed, which is hard to do. He skates as fast with the puck as without the puck, maybe even faster. I don't know how he does it, but it's amazing.
Is the NHL as star-driven a league as the NBA?
I don't think so. I don't think so because the NBA for years has promoted their stars better, I think, than the NHL. And more than that, there's a really unique difference. The NBA stars were stars in college all the way up. The NHL stars might have been stars in junior in Sweden, somewhere else.
Yeah,
so they don't have the knowledge, visibility, or background of the NHL stars that they do in the NBA. So the NBA stars people were made aware of them long before the hockey stars.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, and a good point too as well. A lot of good questions are coming in here, and several of them not necessarily related to anything else. Will you ask Louie, over his years of coaching and being the GM of the North Stars, who was the easiest player to get signed, and who was the most challenging, the most difficult?
Well, it's easy and most difficult. It was Cicerelli, because every year they'd be calling to renegotiate, and I'd have to fight them off, and I wouldn't. The easiest, I don't want to say they're easy. It all depends. Depends who you're dealing with as the agent. When after a while with dealing with agents, they know where you're going, you know where they're going, and you don't have to fight a lot. And I'd have to say Bill Waters was a great agent, but he and I would get to an agreement quicker than anybody else. And he was working with Eagleson, so a lot of times it was Eagleson's players. And so a number of those players we got to faster. But the best I ever had, I was playing, and he might be listening, one of my favorite guys, Tommy Younghans, was a great guy. I played with him, and then all of a sudden I'm manager, and I love Tommy Younghans. I always have since he was at the university, and I get him, his contract's up after I became general manager, and I was playing with him. So he gets as his agent Ronnie Simon.
Oh, yeah.
Who I got. Ronnie Simon started in a career of being an agent in hockey when the WHA came. I had a meeting in my house. I had all the team come over.
Wow.
I had him meet Ronnie. He got Hextall from it. He got Goldsworthy from it. And he started agent there. Then he got Herbeck in baseball. So
you got Puckett too, didn't he?
No, he might have. I don't think he got Puckett.
No, I thought he did.
But he had a lot of great players, and he had football players.
Right.
And it all started from I got him started in the business.
Right.
He was my lawyer, my friend, and then when my son had an injury, he took care of him, and when he lost his leg, and so we were close friends. So I got him started all the way through. So now Ronnie's become the agent, and he had Younghans, and so I called Ronnie and I said, we're starting a deal, and I said, okay, I said I'm going to pay him $53,000. Ronnie said, no, he's getting $60,000, and we argued for a while. I said, no, I'm not doing that. He said, well, I'm not signing him, and so Youngie came around the building, and I said, Tommy, I said, I'm not signing you. I offered you $53,000. That's what it is. And he says, why not? I said, because you got to fire Ronnie, and I'll give you $55,000. We'll do it right now. I said, okay, he's fired. So I signed him right there. So Ronnie called me and said, Louie, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I can. I did it. It's done. So it was over. And he says, well, why would you do that? I said, because I told you what I was going to pay him, and because you're bugging me, I give him an extra $2,000, and that's it. And you don't have a client anymore.
Did he forgive you?
Yeah, well, yeah. We stayed friends.
Yeah, stayed friends.
But
did you hate agents? Because I always felt like Kevin McHale, when he was here,
Ronnie
came to a point where he despised agents. That he really had a hard time with agents.
But he loved Ronnie. Ronnie was his agent.
Okay, well,
yeah. Actually, there are a couple that I despise, and they know that, and some that I like.
No secret. Yeah.
And I just.
So what distinguished the one? I mean, is it simply the one you despise? You couldn't have any. I mean, you just couldn't deal with them. They just wouldn't. There couldn't be any kind of negotiation.
I always ended up dealing with them. I never had anybody I didn't. In fact, Cicerelli was. And the guy, Ronnie, just saw a friend of mine out in L.A. here about 2-3 months ago talking about me. He said, we're friends, which we are, but we weren't.
Right.
My last year when I was general manager, and I was away traveling, and Herbie Brooks was coaching, and they played somebody, and Dino got 2 goals. Well, Herbie takes Dino after the game. George Gunn was at the game, and he takes him out and says, George, you're screwing this guy. He should be making more money. You're kidding. No, that's what I said.
Herbie did that?
Yeah, he said, who are you working for, Herbie, for crying out loud?
Wow.
Anyway, so George calls me and tells me what happened. So I called Herbie and said, you can't be doing that stuff, It's because
that's classic.
So wouldn't you know it, the agent calls George Gunn. And he tries to negotiate a contract. Now, I had already announced that I'm quitting it whenever they get a general manager, and at least by the end of the year. And this is in March. So I called the agent. I said, Ron, you called George Gunn to negotiate a contract with Dino. And he says, yeah. I said, well, I'm the general manager. Well, you said you're going to quit. I said, yeah, but I haven't quit yet. So I'm still general manager. I said, so what do you want to do? And so we started negotiating. Hell with it. I'll wait till they get a new general manager. So we never did sign.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. Herbie. Herbie's the wild card, man. You never knew what Herbie was going to do, right?
Yeah.
That's the bit.
Yeah.
I don't remember that story.
No, well, it never came out.
That's pretty good. Let's take a quick pause. More with Louie. More good questions coming in. We'll talk more. Maybe we'll get to some wild stuff as well. Maybe some more thoughts in Louie's head as we get a little more distance between the Wild being eliminated and where we are in the present. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is 64686. I think I've asked you this question before, but the person who's looking for an answer is desperate for one. So I'll even if we have discussed it, I'm begging you to ask Louie, how does he feel about major junior players being NCAA eligible? Over 120 plus Canadian kids have already taken scholarships away from American players. How would Mariucci feel about this? Most of these Canadian kids will never go to class, much yet graduate. How many Minnesota kids have lost out on an education?
Well, first of all, Mariucci was against Canadians coming down if they didn't come down in the same age as the American boy, which is at 18, coming to school at the same time. He didn't have a problem if they were 18. But now this is a different situation. And I personally, I don't love this rule that they were able to do this. If you look at the whole thing, at the time when this was done right now, Canadian, once you've played one game in junior, step on the ice in junior, you're ineligible for college in the U.S. But at the same time, you have the right as a junior not to play junior there. You could come out to the U.S. and play like Swedes come, Finns play, Russians come. So to me, I I think that's the right way to do it, because now they're coming at the right age, and that's it. What this has done now is, it's funny that you get this question now, because yesterday when I talked to Hartsburg, and his grandson is playing here, and if you're in this Little Caesars team, you're a good player. And he says to me, I says, he's playing in Little Caesars? Yeah. And he says, we'll see this, and then, he might get drafted by the juniors. I said, Craig, if he's that good, why do you want him to go play junior? I said, why don't you have him play college down here? He says, well, the way the rules change now, Louie, he said he can go play junior for a couple of years, and then if he's not going to make the NHL or thinks he needs more, he can go to college after. And I said, yep, I never thought of that. That just came in. That's exactly what is going to happen, and that's what's happening right here. And there are going to be a lot of guys, American boys, losing their opportunity, which I just don't like this change. I don't like all these changes the NCAA made. I don't like the ones that they got to pay for the athletes that much money. And college sports now has changed too dramatically for me, and I can't get my hands around having the college being in the kind of condition it is with athletics, where now money's becoming predominant, not the desire to get an education and play the sport.
Speaking of Herbie, can you ask Louie who Herbie's coaching disciples would be? The skate and weave style hockey. I'd like to know if that style of coaching would be better for the U rather than the dump and chase Motzko insists on playing.
Well, if you look back years ago when Herb was playing, and say we'd be playing international tournaments, the Russians were always the best at it. And the common theme, even with the Russians and the Europeans, was puck control. Mm-hmm. So it would be much different from the way we played in North America. And Herb really loved that.
Prettier.
Yeah, not only prettier, smarter to me, because you keep control of the puck.
Right.
But the difference was the European game was not a physical game. So you never saw as much body checking. So in the North American game, you dump and go and hit them, chase, get the puck. And whereas the European game played puck control. And until the mid-'70s, when the Russians were very prominent in the hockey picture, and they had the Summit Series, etc. And when they had the Summit Series and played so well against the NHL, then you started to see other teams, and especially Scotty Bowman, guys like that, started to have their teams do puck control rather than dump and chase. And Herb was always like that, and he worked his team like that. He'd always have his team skating in condition, but he'd also have them puck control. And I think that obviously, to me, that's a much better way to have it. And it changed back somewhat when you take the red light out in the NHL. So now there's no two-line pass, we call it, two zones pass.
Right.
So now you don't have as much puck control because you got guys flying. You see so many of the teams using somebody flying up high and getting long passes. So, and then you got what Jacques really perfected, that the way you check, so you can't come through with the puck control the way you would in the old style, because you'd be bobbing and weaving back in your own zone all the game. Because from the neutral zone back, you got the line up three or fours in the offensive zone, and the defenseman tight gaps. There's no room.
One other quickie. This is actually from Maury Amsterdam guy. He wants your opinion of next year's consensus number one pick, Gavin McKenna. He's getting some McDavid comparisons, generational talent. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen him play, and I read about these things, but I don't make those comparisons till I see somebody in the NHL doing what McDavid's doing, because McDavid's in the top 5 talent-wise of players ever.
Yeah.
You can't skate faster. You can't handle a puck better. And he's big size, and you can't knock him off, and he's smart. So, he's right up there. He's going to be around for a long time, and he's going to be producing for a long time. And every year, everybody says he's the best player in the league, and And he is.
You got any wild steam for us? Any sort of off the record conversations with Billy Guerin that you can? No, even if you have to protect him, that you could divulge to us to give us some dirt, dirt, but insight.
I know. Yeah, I know. I haven't talked to Bill. I've been in Florida, and he's been, I'm sure, following hockey, and maybe even over in the international tournament right now because he's overall general manager of that team. But I do believe that from their meetings and what they're seeing, and they're not blind, that I think you're probably gonna see a completely different type fourth line. You're going to see a little difference up front, and I'm still expecting, they're going to sign another goaltender and probably, I would think, one more defenseman. I think you're going to see 4 to 6 new guys at least on the team next year. The way you look at the team right now, you definitely could be a 2-round Stanley Cup winner just by making tweaks. Yeah, because their core is really good and their defense is really good. And when you got one of the top players in the world in Kaprizov, it's really good. And the way Gustafson's played goal, but as we see in this, you have to have that little extra, and that little extra being a little better balance in your scoring.
Yep.
A little stronger in the games and the physicality of it. And I think then they're there. I like where they're at. I'm just really anticipating some good signings. And I know I can't see a way that they could get Knives because I think that Toronto would match. But if they haven't matched, he hasn't signed. And he wants to stay there, but still, money talks. And they could go right around $9 million. I don't know if they have a first-round pick to give. I can't recall if they kept their first-round pick, but you need first, second, and third to sign that much. And I know Knives likes it here, and if you got the money in Toronto doesn't play it, he's the kind of guy I'd go after for a forward position. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he puts points on the board.
Rossi's gone, right?
Yeah, in my mind, he's definitely gone. After what I saw in the playoffs, I can't resolve it in any way that there's a change of heart, and all of a sudden, that unless they can't get the free agents they want, but then at the same time, Rossi's going to be the free agent, so somebody could offer him a offer sheet. So. But
you refresh my memory, but you like him better than they do, don't you? Or not?
I think I don't know how much they like him, but I like him enough that until they get somebody
right
that
it's an upgrade.
Yeah, that's a real upgrade. That I don't like to give up 20+ goal scorer.
No.
Did Bruce on the fourth line in the playoffs, so he never really played in the second and third line during the playoffs.
Right? Yeah, so never did.
So you can't make that judgment without looking at it. If it's something that I do think he's gone because it was started happening before that, and I can see if they want to get a bigger productive centerman, that's fine, because he's not going to be the type of centerman that's more involved physically than a lot of his counterparts that maybe scored just a little less.
Last item for you, Louie. Why do we not see any Minnesotans who get into coaching in the NHL? I can only think of Darby Hendrickson as a pro coach. No head coach. It seems odd no one is moving through the ranks to be a head coach.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. One of the reasons why is you don't see a whole lot of them that go into coaching anywhere. You have to spend time in the minors, or the juniors, and move up. I mean, there's some executives like Matt Hendricks at Wild.
Mm-hmm.
He's assistant general manager. I think he's on the right plane to get an executive position and maybe eventually a general manager job in the league. There are guys that are from here that got good hockey knowledge. That the thing is you have to pay the price to get to the top, and the price is a heavy price after you've had a real successful. Say you're a real good hockey player. And you made good money, but you're still young.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take a step down. You got to start down.
Yeah, right.
And many people, most people don't want to make that adjustment.
That's a great point.
Different.
Yep.
And I think that's the toughest thing to get over, that hurdle, because there are opportunities for guys if they want to go after them, but they gotta pay the price. Might have to move their families. They're going to take less money. They're going to be on a treadmill for a while. It's all in the desire of the individual.
Do you want to say hello or give thanks to your favorite sponsor, Kemp's?
Kemp's, I'm telling you, when I'm not in Minneapolis, I miss it. And I'm serious. I don't care where you go around the country. There's no better ice cream than that. And then you got the tater tots. You got a lot of good products over there. With that, I got a couple of golf caps.
There you go.
With the cow on there. It's pretty nice. Everybody asks me what it is. I tell them.
So you're here for not too long.
Well, I've got to go to some business in Marrakesh.
Marrakesh, where else?
We're going to have to do a show from there, probably.
So how do you fly to Marrakesh? What's the connection?
I got to go from here to Paris and a long layover. They just switched my layover from 3 hours to 5 hours.
Ooh.
And then
you got the fancy
over there.
You have the fancy lounge to hang out in?
Yeah, so what? I mean, it's 5 hours.
Yeah, that's true. That's a long time.
Especially when you
And then how long is it Paris to Marrakesh? Not to do too bad there, right?
No, it's a couple hours.
A couple hours, okay.
2.5 hours, I think. Yeah.
Have you been to Marrakesh before?
No, I'm looking forward to it.
That sounds
You know what's funny? They had that Palm Beach paper last week had, they were talking vacations, and they said, here's 26 places in the world that you should visit. And the average person has been to 3. I was at all 26.
I was going to say, how many of those were you? I'm guessing every one of them.
Every one of them.
What's left then? So Marrakesh is one of them.
Yeah.
Probably not very many more. Have you done like the Antarctica?
No, I got down to Buenos Aires, but I have no desire to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, that's, I guess, what do you do there?
I'm not going to do that.
Just not for the sake of saying you just went.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you just want to go and leave. Yeah, that makes some good sense. Yeah. Great to see you, man. Great stuff. Safe travels, and then we'll talk
next week
from Marrakesh.
No, not next week. I'll be here next week.
Oh, you will be here next week.
I don't leave till June 1st.
Oh, even better. Okay, that's outstanding.
All right,
thank you.
Good.
Appreciate
See
it.
you. Thank you.
Kemp's, the fine sponsor. If you didn't already know of the Luigi segments, top 5 at 5, and then Kessler will be joined about 5:30. What do we got?
Timberwolves, Twins, tush push.